Marriage for men, a beautiful union or a financial death trap? Today, we're diving into the cold, hard truth about marriage, divorce, and money. Buckle up because some of these facts might shock you. And hey, if you're married, don't panic just yet. Maybe you struck gold, or maybe you signed up for the world's most expensive subscription service. In this video, we'll explore real-life cases, legal loopholes, and jaw-dropping statistics. So, is marriage truly a bad deal for men? Let's get into it. Let's start with some cold, hard numbers, because if we're talking about risks, we need to know exactly what we're dealing with. According to the CDC, the US divorce rate is 2.5 per 1,000 people. Doesn't sound too bad? Well, let's put it this way. Around 50% of all marriages still end in divorce, and marriage itself is becoming less popular. The Pew Research Center found that the percentage of married adults in the US has been declining for decades. In 1970, about 70% of adults were married. Now, only about 50%. So, with fewer people getting married and almost half of marriages ending in divorce, you might be wondering, what happens when things go south? Well, that's where it gets really interesting. Meet Gabriel Cornejo, a man from Texas who found himself in one of the most outrageous child support cases in recent years. Gabriel was legally required to pay child support for a kid that wasn't even his. And we're not talking about a moral obligation. This was a court-ordered payment. The child's mother claimed he was the only possible father and filed a lawsuit, 16 years after they had broken up. Later, a DNA test proved that he wasn't the biological father. You'd think that would be enough to stop the payments, right? Nope. The court ruled that since he had been named in the lawsuit and failed to challenge it in time, he was financially responsible, biological connection or not. Welcome to the world of family law, where biology can take a backseat to paperwork. And Texas isn't alone. Many states have similar laws that prioritize legal responsibility over DNA evidence. What do you think? Should a man still be financially responsible if a DNA test proves he isn't the father? Is this justice or just another legal loophole? Let us know in the comments. Okay, let's move from everyday cases to something a little more high profile. Because if you think divorce is expensive for the average guy, wait until you hear about Jeff Bezos. In 2019, the founder of Amazon went through the most expensive divorce in history. His wife, Mackenzie, walked away with a stunning $36 billion. Yes, billion with a B. How did this happen? Well, they lived in Washington, a community property state. That means everything earned during the marriage is split 50-50. And when your husband is the world's richest man, that's one hell of a payday. To be fair, Mackenzie didn't take everything. She left Jeff with 75% of their Amazon stock and full control of the company. But let's be real, when you walk away with $36 billion, it's not exactly a loss. So, what's the lesson here? If you're going to divorce, make sure you either have a prenup or own $1 trillion company. Otherwise, you might just end up like everyone else. Jeff Bezos lost $36 billion in his divorce, but let's be honest, he barely felt it. But what about regular guys? How does divorce affect the average man's wallet? From lifelong alimony to brutal asset division, the financial risks of marriage are real. And depending on which state you live in, you might either walk away with half or with just your car and a Spotify playlist. First, alimony. Some call it spousal support. Others call it the never-ending subscription fee. Either way, it's a major factor in divorces. In states like California, if your marriage lasted over 10 years, you might be paying alimony indefinitely. Yes, that's right, until your ex remarries or you die. New York, on the other hand, follows equitable distribution. This means the court decides who gets what based on fairness. And let's be honest, fairness is pretty subjective when lawyers are involved. And let's not forget child support. For many men, divorce doesn't just mean splitting assets. It means years of court-ordered payments. And if you think child support is always fair, think again. Some cases have seen men paying thousands per month, even when their financial situation changes. In extreme cases, failing to pay can even lead to jail time. Bottom line, Divorce isn't just about splitting up. It's about splitting bank accounts, assets, and sometimes your future paycheck. All right, losing half your assets is painful, but what about losing access to your kids? Because if you think divorce courts are financially ruthless, wait until you see how custody battles play out. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, about 80% of child custody cases award primary custody to the mother. That means most men don't just lose their marriage, they lose daily contact with their kids too. Studies show that men often experience higher levels of depression, anxiety, and even social isolation after divorce, especially when they lose contact with their children. So, if you thought divorce was just about money, think again. For many men, it's not just about financial loss, it's about losing their role as a father. We've looked at the worst-case scenarios, but let's be fair, marriage isn't all doom and gloom. In fact, research shows there are some real benefits to tying the knot. According to Harvard Health Publishing, married men tend to live longer, have lower stress levels, and even recover from illnesses faster compared to single men. And financially? While divorce can be costly, studies show that married men generally accumulate more wealth over time than single men. Probably because, they're not spending money on wild bachelor lifestyles. But let's not ignore the other side. Critics argue that the modern marriage system is outdated and often financially disadvantages men in the long run. So, what's the truth? Like most things in life, it depends. Marriage can be an amazing partnership or a financial disaster. The key? Knowing what you're getting into before saying, "I do." All right, we've talked about the risks of marriage. But what if there was a way to protect yourself? Enter the prenup. Prenuptial agreements have skyrocketed in popularity, with a 62% increase over the past 2 decades. More and more couples, especially millennials, are signing prenups before saying, "I do." But here's the big question. Do they actually work? The answer is yes and no. Prenups can protect assets, businesses, and inheritance. However, they don't always protect you from alimony payments. In many cases, courts can still award spousal support, even if a prenup exists. And guess what? A prenup can actually be thrown out in court. If a judge decides it was unfair or signed under pressure, it might not hold up. Is a prenup the ultimate protection? Maybe. But like everything else in marriage, it depends on the fine print. So, is marriage a bad deal for men? Well, the answer isn't black and white. On one hand, divorce laws can be brutal, custody battles are often unfair, and alimony payments can feel like a life sentence. On the other hand, statistics show that marriage can lead to a longer life, greater financial stability, and overall happiness, when done right. So, what do you think? Is marriage worth the risk, or is it a financial trap waiting to happen? Let us know in the comments. And hey, whether you're married, single, or just watching for fun, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. Because if this information saves just one guy from a bad prenup, it was all worth it. Subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.